Welcome to Inside the Markets with John McLeod. Each program we will bring you insider insights by interviewing the top minds in the market, intriguing local business owners and hobbyists in order to create an insightful, one-stop resource to improve your lifestyle and enhance your education, all provided by the top local professionals in our area. Welcome to Inside the Markets. We're here today with Ray Faubion with McGriff Insurance. Ray, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in the insurance industry?
Well, let's see. My dad was a State Farm agent.
Okay.
He started in Fort Myers in 1961. We moved from Miami, had the opportunity to open an agency.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, there was only one agent in all of Lee County, and so he was early in on the insurance business.
Excellent.
And when for summers and weekends and so forth, I used to work in his office, so I got really used to it from a young age. And decided after I graduated college that I wanted to pursue that career.
Okay. Where'd you go to college?
Lakeland, Florida Southern College.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Now, have you been in Fort Myers your entire life?
Born in Miami, but
Okay.
moved over when my dad started that agency in 1961. I was just 2.
Excellent. Excellent. My kids actually moved down here when they were 2, but it wasn't 1961.
Yeah,
Tell me a little bit about your community involvement, the type of organizations you're in and so forth.
It's been several things over the years. That was kind of a motto that our company, our individual company, well, let me step back. Actually, my parents were involved in different organizations,
Okay.
volunteer organizations, when I was young, so I kind of got an early start in that. They led by example. And then when I started my working career, especially when I went with an independent agency in the late 90s, that was something that was kind of a motto of the agency. Get involved in the community,
Okay.
get to know people, and that's probably a good way to build your business.
Okay.
So I took that and ran with it. I got involved with Rotary early on. The YMCA.
Okay.
Bonita Springs Assistance Office, and a few other organizations that I've really enjoyed being involved with over the years. And it's helped build my business, but it's done the right thing for the community, so it's a win-win.
What's your biggest takeaway or biggest achievement from working with civic organizations like Rotary or the YMCA?
I think it's the people you meet. You really
Okay.
meet some great people, like yourself, John, that wants to be involved in the
I did not pay
community.
him for that.
But people that want to be involved in the community, generally they're the ones that you look up to and what they do. And if you can get to be friends with them and do good things with them, then they end up helping you in your business as well.
Okay.
It goes both ways.
Excellent. Excellent. So, who would you say inspires you the most?
Probably my parents, first of all,
Okay.
just because of their involvement in the community, and they just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary, so that was a real special thing to be involved with.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Yep, thank you. And after that, it was probably the CEO of the first agency I joined after I left my parents' State Farm agency, and that was Gary Tripp.
Okay.
Also very involved in the community, he set a good example, and I tried to follow him.
Now, if I remember correctly, Gary Tripp with Oswald Tripp then became BB&T Insurance.
That's
Correct.
right. That's right.
Oswald Tripp was purchased by BB&T Bank and Insurance Company.
Right.
And McGriff is a rebrand, if you will. So it's the same company
Yes.
as BB&T. It's just a rebrand.
That's exactly
Okay.
right. No changes, just new name, new email, new
Okay.
letterhead. Yes.
Excellent. And that you just completed that transition a couple months ago.
Yes, it's very recent. Still getting a lot of questions about it.
I'm sure. It tends to throw people for a loop with a name change, and
Right.
After reading a little bit more about why the name change was put in place makes an awful lot of sense. So, talking about the insurance industry here in Southwest Florida, obviously we've got some unique challenges here. Besides the weather obviously being a big topic of conversation as of late, but what are some of the challenges you see or the missteps that you see that people either do on purpose or just don't completely understand what sort of coverage they need and where they might be leaving themselves open to some liability?
Okay. We call it the country of Florida when it comes to insurance, because Florida's
Okay.
this little stick of land between the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico with the big winds that blow back and forth
Yep.
across, and that makes us unique in that respect. So what we do in Florida is often much different than what we do in the rest of the country. You talked about the hurricane. That's what drives it being called the country of Florida, because we have to do things differently because of our hurricane risk. A lot of the larger name brand companies that you and I have known all our lives don't want to write residential insurance in Florida or property insurance most of any kind because they don't want to be involved in that hurricane risk. So, knowing the markets that do write insurance, finding the ones that offer the more well-rounded policies, and of course looking to try to find the best rate for the best coverage is important. I think one thing that people underestimate a lot is rebuilding costs. In our current market now, we're over a year out since Hurricane Irma blew through the state, and just after Hurricane Michael devastated the Panhandle. Going out and building a home in a normal time is one thing. Going out and repairing, or even worse, having to rebuild a home right after a hurricane is a whole different ballgame. The cost of doing so is much higher. So accounting for that extra cost is probably the biggest thing people don't think about.
As you know, I learned that.
Yes.
The cost of replacing a roof is significantly more than it is if we are outside of a storm window, and building supplies and labor supplies are in good parallel with each other.
That's right.
Then
Pool cages and all that.
Yeah, and pool cages.
Yeah.
All of that becomes grossly overly expensive.
It does.
After a storm.
And not because, and I'm sure there's some instances where there might be some gouging out there, but for the most part, it's just because there's a lack of materials and a lack of labor. So it just drives common economics. It just drives the cost up.
So when somebody comes to sit down and have a chat with you about a home, let's talk waterfront homes. Because obviously we're on the coast, and hurricanes are kind of a double or even triple threat when it comes to insurance, because not only you have to insure against the wind, you have to insure against rising waters also.
Right.
What are some of the ways that people can, what are some of the things they need to look out for when they're insuring their home if they happen to be on the water down here?
Okay, well, the first thing is the wind. That's probably our biggest risk outside the rising water, as you mentioned. Being sure they have adequate limits of insurance. And then deductibles, again, the country of Florida, our deductibles for wind damage, primarily hurricane, are often different than in other states. In most states, they're a flat dollar amount. In Florida, most of those hurricane deductibles are a percentage, often 2 to 5%.
How is that percentage determined?
It's based on the limit of insurance for the home. So if you have $1 million home, a 2% hurricane deductible is $20,000. That's a lot different than a flat $1,000 or $2,500 deductible.
Absolutely.
So making the client aware of that in the event of the worst case scenario, the major hurricane damage, they're going to cost share it more than they would for any other type of a loss. That's something that really we strive to educate our clients about.
Now, you mentioned that the deductible could be a range of 2 to 5%. Is that an individual insurance company decision, or is that the homeowner's decision and it affects the price of the premium?
Well, the answer really both. Ultimately it's the client's decision what they take.
Okay.
We try to offer different amounts and what makes sense. I don't want to go to a high deductible if I'm only saving a little amount of money. But if it saves a lot of money, it's worth letting the client make that choice. Following Hurricane Irma, we've had more companies come back because of consumer outcry about the high hurricane deductibles. And a lot of those companies have come back and started offering flat deductibles for an additional premium. So giving them the range of deductibles is a good idea.
All right. Well, it's good to come in and be able to serve the needs or the wants of the community that way. So it's
right.
And it is nice hearing that some agencies are looking to come back in. I've been in Florida for 20 years, and I think it was Hurricane George was the first one that I went through on my way to Tallahassee for a football game of all things. And then after that, there were a number of insurance companies that pulled out.
Right.
And one of them happened to be the company I was with that I had my insurance with at the time.
Not a comfortable situation.
No, it's not. You're left scrambling.
Right.
And
it still happens today. Occasionally, you have companies that don't want to continue in a certain area. In the big picture, they look at where their risk is, and if they're overexposed in a certain area, maybe they want to back off that, which is probably good for the consumers overall. Then we'll find a company to replace that one.
Now, I'm going to go back to hurricane coverage again here, because we learned, as you know, full disclosure, Ray happens to be my agent. He has been for a long, long time. And we learned by reading our policy after the hurricane that we had all this other coverage that never even dreamed was available. For instance, our freezer full of fresh meat got completely replaced because there was a rider in there that we had no idea about. Those type of riders, are those typical in insurance policies, or are those ones that when you're designing a policy for a client, you kind of bundle it together so that you know that they're insured properly?
Most of the time, our philosophy is offer the client most everything that we have,
Okay.
and let them pick and choose. Up to a certain point, there's certain things that we feel are a minimum, like that valuation for the home. We want to insure it for the right value. But most of those extra options are something that we include in the policies. They may seem like superfluous things when you're looking at a quote sheet, but after you have a hurricane damage and you've got $1,000 worth of stuff in your refrigerator that's gone, it becomes important to get reimbursed for that. So we do try to give a very well-rounded policy, at least that offer to start with, and work our way down if the client wants to try to reduce the premium.
Excellent. And we were appreciative of that. I know, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that may not even realize that they have these coverages. If there's anything I can say is go back and read your policies and double check what your coverage is, because you may find that you have coverage in areas that you weren't really expecting.
Talk to your agent.
Talk to your agent. They will know it inside and out for sure. What are there any other thoughts that people really need to consider? One that's come across my desk a few times in the past month or so is seawall and boat damage due to storms. How do you handle that? Is a seawall considered part of that 2 to 5% deductible in a hurricane?
Most seawalls are typically uninsurable.
Okay.
There's not the major damage is wave and water damage, wave wash and so forth, tidal changes. That's something that's not insurable on a standard policy. I'm frankly not aware of anywhere we can actually get that.
Okay.
I have had claims for seawalls that were covered, things such as vandalism or lightning strikes that do damage to concrete, believe it or not.
Yep.
Docks the same way, fire, a wooden dock that catches fire.
Okay.
There's oftentimes coverage for that sort of thing. But the major damage, the wave and water damage, nothing we can really do for the seawall itself. That's something that someone who lives on the water needs to know about, so that they understand if something happens, that's a cost that they're going to have to bear.
Excellent. And now kind of getting off track here for a minute, getting to know you a little more personally, if you will. Someone comes to you and says you have to clean your room, desk, or car. Which one are you going to clean first?
Oh boy, that's it'd be a toss-up between the desk and the car, because the room is definitely last.
It's a good way of putting it.
It's probably every other week, one and the other.
Is there anything that any truth that you feel that most people don't agree with you with?
Don't agree with me with? Wow. I think probably if we were to use an insurance example, it's flood insurance.
Okay.
I really push flood insurance for all my clients. But I have a lot of people that just don't feel that that's a big risk for them.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that changes now. When I just read something in the paper this morning about they estimated a 14-foot surge in the Panhandle. If we had a 14-foot surge here, we'd be up to our eyeballs right here.
Yeah, we'd have water all the way at I-75.
That's right.
Feet. Yeah.
So I think that's something that I do have a lot of clients that, and we get a lot of people, obviously, from other areas of the country where flooding is not even a thought. But it is a big risk, and I think that's something that people need to understand, and really something that they don't always believe me about, but they need to.
Exactly. Excellent. Well, Ray, thank you very much for the time.
Thanks, John.
We've been chatting with Ray Faubion from McGriff Insurance. You will see his contact information at the bottom of the screen. If you have any questions, please feel to reach out, and I guarantee you he'd be happy to take your questions. Ray,
thanks John. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Inside the Markets with John McLeod. I hope you found this topic interesting. Each show we will bring you intriguing and relevant commentary from the top experts here in our market. If you have suggestions for future topics or would like to be a guest on the show, please email me at johnmcleod@kw.com. That's JONMCLEOD @kw.com.